Hi there, this is Christina from Speak English with Christina, and welcome back for the second lesson in this special mini course on how to master spoken English. And today's lesson is all about moving from intermediate to advanced English. Just a reminder, if you want to activate the subtitles for this video, click the little CC icon at the bottom of the screen. Otherwise, you can also watch the video with no subtitles. So, today, in part 2, we're going to look at advanced English through virtual immersion and how to get from maybe your current level today, which is about intermediate, it's okay, but it's not as advanced and natural and fluent as you would like it to be. So, let's think about how your progress in English feels today. You're at an intermediate level, and maybe it feels like you've hit a brick wall, like you don't know what to do to improve. You do a lot of things, but you're not seeing the improvement that you want to see. And it literally feels like you have hit something that is stopping you from improving. It's like you're just blocking at this place. Now, rest assured that at an intermediate level, so this is B1, B2, this is actually a very normal feeling because, you're at a level where you can communicate okay in most situations that you encounter, which means that, you're not progressing as fast as you were in the past. And in reality, you actually see more progress faster at lower levels because you're learning a lot of things that are allowing you to communicate in more situations much more quickly. But when you get to an intermediate level, you can communicate in most situations. And it might not always be correct or as natural as you would like, but it does the job. And that means that you really have to push yourself if you're going to improve to that next advanced level. And often, students imagine that they're learning, it's like a straight line. The more time you spend, the more you will improve, and that it just continues at the same rate of progression. But in reality, the actual learning curve is, when you're beginning a language, you can make a lot of improvement at the beginning, but the more you progress in that language to that intermediate level, the more your learning tends to stabilize. It tends to flatten out, almost stagnate, and become just a straight line. So when students say, oh, I've been studying English for 10 years, they think that during that 10 years, their progression has always been at the same rate. And in reality, it hasn't. And it just means also that you've reached something which is called the intermediate plateau in language learning. So it's kind of like you've hit that middle part, that okay plateau, where, what you're communicating in English, it's okay for a lot of situations, but now you're ready to start progressing again and moving up to that expert advanced level where you can express more nuances, where you can, use a bigger variety of vocabulary and just really move towards sounding much more advanced and closer to native speakers. So the challenge with this is that as you move to advanced levels, the language, it becomes more abstract and more nuanced. And that means that you might not use these expressions so often, but you want to have them available for you when you need them. The key to this is to focus on things that are useful and relevant to you. There's no point in learning a lot of stuff that you'll probably never use, but you can become much more advanced in the situations where you know that you're going to need to communicate. And when you combine this, something that's relevant to you, that it's useful to you, your brain works harder to retain it, which means that it's a little easier to memorize, or not memorize, but to learn, really, just because it's important for you. So we're going to look at how to attack this problem effectively. Now, the first thing is we need to attack it from all sides in a coordinated way. In lesson 1, we saw how just doing a bunch of random activities like a little bit of Netflix, a little bit of Duolingo, a little bit of grammar exercises, but in a very random way, is not the best approach. So we're going to really coordinate everything to really attack your English problem from all sides. And to do this, we're going to look at two different styles of learning. Natural learning, so this is like absorbing the language just by exposure, what you can do when you're listening to podcasts, watching movies, having random conversations. And we're also going to look at deliberate learning, and this is actually like working on or studying English to understand new things. And in order to attack the problem from all sides, you need a mix of both, but again, in a very coordinated way. So just to give you some examples of like naturally learning, this could be listening to your favorite podcast, meeting with some friends or just a language partner just to talk and practice talking about any topic. Or it could also be like when you're reading magazines or articles and you're, just coming across new vocabulary. That's all very natural learning. And then deliberate learning, if we take those three examples and see how we could use the natural learning to then do some deliberate learning. If you're listening to a podcast, you can get the transcript and actually start doing a lot of different activities with it, which we'll see in the next lesson. Going from just random conversations about anything to more structured, focused conversations, like in my Fluency Club, where you have a specific theme and vocabulary activities every week. And then from just reading something and noticing new expressions, you can actually deliberately learn them, for example, with a system like some flashcards, for example, on the website Quizlet. So those are how you can take your natural learning and also add some deliberate learning and really, again, attack it from all angles. And in the next lesson, we're going to really look at a concrete plan on how to do that. So just to give you some examples of how you can do natural learning and deliberate learning with a lot of different activities. We had natural listening, just listening to hear the sounds, like when you listen to the news or a podcast. Deliberate listening, maybe when you're actually focusing on the sounds and trying to learn to decode the sounds, like with my Understand Real American English course, for example, or any other listening course. Natural conversation practice, this is just talking, just practicing with no specific objective other than just to practice. Deliberate conversation practice is where you actually have, a little bit of a structure, a specific topic, some vocabulary words that you want to use, some questions that you want to try to place in that conversation. So it's more structured. There's naturally noticing new vocabulary. You just hear it or read it and you say, I don't know this word. Let me make a note of it. And then deliberately working on it. This could be putting it in a notebook, making flashcards with it, maybe trying to integrate it into your conversation practice, etc. And it's the same thing with grammar structures. You might just naturally hear or read something that you say, this is new and interesting. And then doing deliberate work on that grammar, for example, worksheets, exercise, working with a teacher. And when you put those two types of learning together and you coordinate them, that's really the pathway to mastering spoken English. Now, a lot of students, when I tell them, what's the thing that's missing from your language to really get to that advanced level? And they say, I just need to go and live in the country. I have to do an immersion, or I have to go and spend 3 months in the US or something like that. And they feel like that this is the only solution that's available to them. It's a solution, but it's not the only solution. And also it's not necessarily, there's no guarantee that you'll become advanced just for moving to the country. I think we can all think of, someone who has lived in a foreign country for months or maybe years and who still does not master the language. So there's no guarantee that an immersion will, in the country will make you fluent. It can, and it's a great experience for lots of reasons, but it's not the only way to do that. And just a little reminder from lesson number 1, you remember top performers that we talked about? If you don't, go back and watch lesson 1, you'll see what we mean by top performers. They don't make excuses. They create solutions to their problems. So they don't say, oh, I want to be advanced, but I need to go and live in the country and I can't because I have my job and my family, etc. So I just can't do it. No, they recognize that problem or that constraint, but then they find another solution to help them reach their goals. And the solution that I'm going to suggest to you is a virtual immersion. So you don't have to leave your home, you don't have to take off weeks or months from your job, and you can do it in your home and on your time. So what is a virtual immersion? It's basically creating an environment where you're surrounded by English, like an immersion, but in your own home, in your own environment. It's also blending focused, deliberate learning that we talked about with that natural, incidental learning. So you're really combining the two, just picking up the language from your virtual immersion and also really doing some focused work to understand and to integrate those new things into your language. And it's also carefully choosing the resources that are relevant and useful for your life. So this is one of the advantages of a virtual immersion, is that you can really select the things that you're learning with so that it's optimal for your situation. It makes it easier to integrate and to learn because your brain recognizes it as useful. Like, hey, this is useful. I need to learn this. And now, why does this work? Basically because you're attacking from all sides, but in a very strategic and useful way. So you're really optimizing the time that you're spending in contact with English, and you're optimizing the resources. Also, you discover the places where you've hit a brick wall. So by really immersing yourself in the language, you discover the things that you don't understand. You discover the vocabulary that you don't know, or the grammar that you don't understand or that you can't use. You discover the tasks that you want to be able to do in English, but that currently you can't. And so it's like you feel that, that sensation of like hitting that brick wall, and you're like, I can't go further. Okay, I realize this. But then you can ask your teacher or your mentor exactly what resources are the best to help you really destroy that brick wall. They can give you vocabulary exercises or techniques for learning vocabulary. They can give you grammar activities. They can give you challenges. You want to learn to, negotiate your salary in English. Well, they can give you some tips, and they can do role plays with you and give you some challenges to try, to reflect on, and to improve the way that you do that task. And then when you're doing this, you start to break down that brick wall. It's like, you had those blockages, and then little by little and step by step, you're really just making a crack in that brick wall until finally that brick wall is going to just break down, and you're going to feel that freedom to really express yourself in a more advanced way. And also this works because you're focusing on the right things at the right moment. So that all goes back to the things that are relevant and useful for you at the moment. There's no need in, studying something that you might use in 2 years. Don't study and prepare something that you don't need immediately, that you're not going to practice or implement immediately, because what will happen is you'll just study it and you'll forget it. I mean, this has happened to me lots of times. I go to conferences, I learn lots of things, I take lots of notes, but I don't implement it, and then, nothing changes. So you really need to focus on the right things at the right moment so you can learn it, implement it, and really integrate it into your more advanced English. And because you're interested in these resources, it's more emotional. You have a connection with the things that you're learning, which means it sticks better. You're not memorizing, you're learning. There's a difference there. And when you do all of this, you'll see it's really going to just accelerate your progress. So you're not necessarily doing a lot more than what you were doing previously, perhaps, but you are working smarter, and it's going to help you to improve faster and just accelerate your improvement, which, is great because you're getting better faster, but it's also great for your motivation because you see that you don't have to be blocked. It's not a fatality to just reach this level and then be stuck at intermediate for life. No. So let me give you a take action tip, something that you can do right now to just start, a little bit of a virtual immersion, because in our next lesson, we're going to really look at, a detailed step-by-step, concrete, practical plan for doing it. But I want to give you one thing to do so you start. Go ahead and install the app Evernote on your phone. Evernote, it's an app that is basically a note-taking app. You can take lots of notes. It's synchronized on your computer, and it's free. So when you're watching a series or a movie or you're reading something in English, just note 5 interesting expressions, 5 things that you read or you hear, and you're like, I could use this perhaps, and note them in your Evernote. Then, for the next week, I want you to review these expressions at least 3 times per day. You're just going to space out your deliberate learning a little bit. And each time that you revise these expressions, I want you to imagine a conversation in your head with these expressions. And again, make that conversation something that is useful for you, a conversation that you could imagine having with a colleague, maybe with a client, something like that. But do that 3 times per day for a week to learn those expressions. And I guarantee they will stick in your head. Just try this for the next week, and you can tell me about it. So, in our next lesson, which is coming up on Thursday, you're going to get a sample virtual immersion plan, so really concrete and practical. You're going to see what it feels like when you live the language every day through this virtual immersion without taking days off from your work to travel to a country, without, having to leave your family for a long period of time. But you're going to see what that feels like, and you're going to see it's quite nice. And you're also going to see just how easy it can be if you spend some time at the beginning planning and scheduling things and just making this a very natural part of your day, generally by replacing things that you already do by things that you can do in English. And so we'll see that it's not as challenging as it sounds. It takes a little preparation and a little bit of, laying the foundation at the beginning, but after that, it's quite easy. So I want you to tell me in the comments below this video, what resources and activities are you already using to learn English? And how are they helping you? Because there's a good chance that if you're already using it, if you like it, and if it's helping you, you can very much integrate it into your virtual immersion program. So let me know what you're using, and I'll see if I can integrate some of those into that sample virtual immersion that we're going to see in the next lesson. And also, if you want to be absolutely sure that you get the next lesson in this mini course, go ahead and go to ChristinaRubafe.com. Sign up there so that you get the email with the next lesson in your inbox, and you won't miss it, on YouTube. And plus, when you sign up, you're going to get my American Accent Survival Kit for free, just to welcome you to Speak English with Christina. And what this is, it's a little kit that's going to help you to understand, recognize immediately 12 very common everyday expressions that Americans say without articulating them, let's say. It sounds like it's fast to you, which means there's a big difference between the expression that you see written on the paper and the expression that you hear when Americans say it at normal American speed, let's say. And this American Accent Survival Kit is going to give you a worksheet to practice, a test to test yourself, and also a video lesson to really explain the things that you're hearing and why it sounds like it does and how you can better understand. All right, so go ahead, go to ChristinaRubafe.com, sign up for that. Tell me about the resources that you're using in the comments below, and then I will see you in a couple of days for the 3rd lesson in this mini-series. All right, thanks. Have fun with it, and see you later.